think with regard to data centers? Welcome. Thank you, Liselot. Do you want the microphone? Or are they going to sit on the tables? Okay, so I'll keep this.
That's for the next. Yeah, wherever.
Testing, testing. Sorry.
My name is Christiane Ulriksen, and as a member of the advisory board of the Norwegian data center industry, I have the pleasure to moderate industry talks. I'm happy to introduce Marley Holeskogen, Director for Technology and Sustainability at ICT Norway, Bjørn Rønning, CEO of the Norwegian data center industry, and Kjetil Ertnes from DLA Consulting. Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you.
So then I think we start. How is the Norwegian data center industry addressing sustainability concerns, particularly in terms of energy consumption and carbon footprint? And I think here I would like to first hear you, Bjørn, and then Marley, to get those perspectives together.
Okay. Good afternoon, everybody. Good for you to have us here, or the other way around. It's quite a big chunk to answer, of course. But I think that Norway, we came late to the show because we were kind of slowly evolving the fiber network that didn't make us relevant for the greater European market and for international players. And we have seen recently a massive build out of fiber networks, international fiber cables, subsea cables, and so forth. And we have matured, slowly but surely, we have matured this market. So suddenly, everybody sees that really the problem with the problem or the challenge with the green transition or the twin transition is basically about decarbonizing society across all sectors. So that means that data centers, I think Marley is going to talk about the digital services, how they can decarbonize the society. I, for one, I'm taking care of decarbonizing the digital infrastructure. And we do that by means of some natural benefits that we are have been given here in Norway, that we have almost 100% renewable energy in our power mix, which is basically unheard of in every other market. And so together with the Nordics as well, the other Nordic countries, we can offer a sustainable, like a scope 2 that's really, you can cross out scope 2 in the GHG protocol. So that gives us a head start in that. But also the awareness of the whole scope in terms of thinking sustainability and circularity across the whole life cycle of the infrastructure. That's important. So I think that unless you want me to take over this whole conference, I think I'll give the word to other ones here. So maybe Marley, you'll follow up on that.
Thank you. Now I strongly agree with Bjørn on many aspects here, and When we started out building the sustainability platform for the Norwegian ICT industry 4 years ago, we did it on 3 different levels. So we hired a consultancy who are experts in companies who are on the stock exchange of Norway to evaluate how they're working on sustainability. And they did a full review of the Norwegian ICT industry down to telecom data center, consultancies, software and hardware. And then we did close to 30 interviews with CEOs in small or large companies in Norway. And then we also scanned out what our competition does. And 4 years ago, when we were building our strategy, we were a little bit anxious that if we are coming strong on different fields where some of our competitors are very clever, turns out not many of our competitors did anything. So we felt like it was a little bit of an open space to build on. And that analysis gave a very clear result. So the ICT industry of Norway, they point to 5 different aspects of sustainability who is important also for the data centers. So cybersecurity, of course, and trust in technology and also in the infrastructure, of course. Lack of competence and knowledge, so talent, which we have a huge problem with in Norway. Access to clean energy, access to rare earth metals and metals for the hardware industry, and also the big troll, the public procurement dynasty, or whatever you want to call it. So all of these things, they come into play when we talk about Norwegian green data center industry. First and foremost, we are extremely lucky to be placed on the planet where we are at the moment, with access to so much hydropower and also other renewables. We are also extremely lucky that it's economically stable, geopolitically stable, economically stable, quite cold, and also we have access to metals that are not really, even though it's extremely controversial to take them out of the ground. So all of these gives us extremely much benefit. Our biggest problem, I would say, when it comes to the sustainability question is actually that we have almost all the talents in Norway are aggregated in the private sector. So when we try to change the world through politics or to local municipalities, we have a debate that is all over the place. So what we actually need is to bring forward awareness and knowledge and get rid of myths that the data centers of Norway have on their shoulders, and there is really a lot of it. So I would say our challenge and the bottlenecks for the industry is also, of course, access to metals and green energy, but having a sober and science-based discussion about the real importance of data center and digital infrastructure and how it affects and opens up an opportunity to change the world in a greener way. It's a little bit of a way ahead for us, I would say.
Yes, thank you. You mentioned the geopolitical climate. So my next question is then, how does the current geopolitical climate affect Norwegian data center industry? And what measures are being taken to mitigate potential risks?
We can talk, first we can address really the opportunities. As Mali alluded on that we have a culture and we have a political stability and a political system that has fostered trust. I think the Norwegian society across all markets and countries has the highest level of trust in terms of inhabitants versus government and authorities. And I think that this gives us also a very stable political climate that's favorable for all other international investors. They feel safe because they know that it's not going to happen, hopefully not any kind of revolutions or any sudden changes in tax politics and so forth. But of course, the geopolitical challenges also forces the Norwegian digital infrastructure and digital industry to strengthen, to fortify, to put, again, awareness is really a key issue here, to be aware of, not be naive anymore, because high trust is often coupled with a high grade of naivety. And that goes for a lot for Norwegians. So we need to balance this naivety versus reality. and external threats. And we know, we have reports coming from the security authorities and the secret services that really points out that the threat picture it's tightening up.
Yeah, thank you. Kjetil, you are in contact with a lot of international investors. How do you experience this?
Well, I think at the moment it's AI race going on. So I think these questions is not the most hot topics at the moment. But I think the investors looking more into the long term, they will have a clear opinion about that. And I think the ESG parameters will be very important moving forward. And I think if you're going 1 or 2 years back when the Norwegian Oil Fund they show a way forward for this. So my feeling is now that the investors is focusing more and more on these parameters compared with the TSO. So the cost of running this, even if it's green, is very, very important for them. But at the moment, it's time to market. It's very short and it's very difficult to handle it. So if you have power available, you have a chance to handle some of this, but it's challenging.
Yeah, thank you. The report the Norwegian Data Center Association issued a short time ago mentions technological advancements. Could you discuss the role of innovation and maintaining Norway's competitiveness in the global data center market? Malik?
Yeah, absolutely. I would say that there are some interesting new political rules that we should have it back on our minds. Like the 1st of January this year, the Norwegian government, they put into play a procurement arrangement. So now, if the public is buying pencils or tanks or everything in between, they have to put 30% of how they weight that into environment and also sustainability. So 30% of each computer and phone and also cloud services, digital services, and all of this is to be weighted to 30% sustainability when it's been given to any customer or provider. And this is, of course, meant for to be an industry, to be a tool to drag Norwegian society through the green shift using the power of public procurement. This changes a lot in our industry, and we also know that the government hasn't really thought it through how this is going to be done. And also, we have close to 3,000 people who are working with public procurement in Norway, and of course it's extremely difficult to find out what kind of computer or servers or cloud service is the most sustainable one and how we should count this. So what we can do is actually turn this into our advantage, because now we have a way of measuring what is the most sustainable way of doing this. So there is not only access to clean power who comes into play, it's also the climate footprint on the fibers and also cables. It's the surplus heat, how we use it, if we can build innovation through it. Maybe we can also use this as a tool to innovate more around these questions. And also that's something that we really need to do because of myth busting in this industry. I mean, it's very, very often that you hear the sentence, we can't have this box out in nature just giving out heat for free. And that's like it's not a good narrative around doing this in a sustainable way. So I would say that we are now opening up a new era where we can work quite closely with the authorities. We have already lots of workshops with them going on to make this the right way, and we will do everything we can to do that to strengthen the Norwegian competition power of the data center industry.
Yeah, and to follow up on that, Molly, is as you know, we published this report the 18th of January, and where we highlighted, we really felt the need to bring a factual discussion to the table. because much of the discussion, both by the authorities, but also on the larger public audience, it has been based on myths and misperceptions. Like we can take energy consumption as one issue here. So as of end of 2023, the Norwegian data center industry, excluding crypto, mind you, just constituted 1.5% of the total energy consumption in Norway. And mind you, this is also a non-subsidized industry, opposed to a lot of the energy-intensive industry in Norway that's basically relying on heavy state subsidies and a power price that's non-tax, no energy tax on. So I think that we have a long way ahead of us to break all the myths and to get this factual discussion moving forward, and also get both the authorities but also the local communities and all the stakeholders in society to be on the same page. And I wouldn't say that we're without any challenges and problems, but I think that we're quite honest about this, and we're eager to work on this to improve whatever we do and the contribution back to society.
I would also add to that the traditional industry, who is also heavy dependent on access to clean energy, they will become heavily dependent on the infrastructure, the digital infrastructure of Norway, more and more as we see it. And also, of course, because you need to implement AI into all these kind of industries. Otherwise, it's just wipe off.
Yeah, and I think that's quite a steep learning curve for the process industry and the heavy industries to see if they are going to manage at any measure to move from today's regime, which is extremely carbon intensive and high on emissions, and they pay a lot of cost for carbon quotas. It's a steep curve to see how can they transform this. We're basically talking about the twin transition now. How can you go from a carbonized to a decarbonized industry and society? And mind you, just a fact, Norway has a total annual consumption, energy consumption on 300 terawatt hours. 150 of these, give or take, are based on renewable power. That means that the other half, 150 terawatt hours, is still based on fossil fuel. And we have no plan how to do that, probably other than move the targets.
Björn, since we are talking about energy consumption, what can you say about the actual use of capacity versus the granted capacity per site, and how long should the reservations of capacity be upheld in today's market with potentially coming power constraints? Do you have any suggestions?
Yeah, so today in Norway you have to apply for a reservation in the transmission and power distribution network. And then you have to, there is a queue order. So first, it's basically today, it's based on a first come, first serve principle. But you also have to show what we call a maturity, go through a maturity assessment, which basically says that you have to prove that you can fulfill all the steps and milestones in this maturity assessment, which is basically you have to have the financing in order, you have to have the zoning of the area in order. But the important thing, the interesting thing here, that the government or the authorities, they don't see if this project is by any measures profitable. So that means that everybody that has an interest, either if their business is wildly, it's never going to be profitable, they can apply and get in line before every other business that's call it more profitable. And I think that's this discussion, we are just on the cusp of seeing the start of this discussion, because as the amount of, and you alluded to this very early in this conversation, that the access to new reserves of renewable power, it shrinks by the day. So that means that the smaller the surplus power, amount of surplus power is, the larger the fight is going to be, and the harder the argumentation is going to be. But there's still, in my personal view, and mind you, I'm talking on behalf of the data center industry, there's a lot of businesses that I honestly believe they will be pulled off the reservation and of the queue and free some space for data center and other viable industry that we really need in the green transition.
Yeah, thank you. Stetel, I have a question for you. What advice would you give to a customer from outside Norway that considers Norway as a country to place data loads or to build a new data center?
Well, I think you could start with going into Invest in Norway's homepages, and there you could find a lot of information. We also produced a guide a couple of years back that shows more in depth how you could approach the Norwegian market and the players. And of course, the Norwegian data center industry with Bjørn will be a perfect first contact, I think, to maneuver further. And yeah, I think it's also depend on what kind of investment you want to do. Because when you're looking at the AI race that's going on, they have no time to do very deep analysis, I think. I didn't want to have the GPUs in production as fast as possible. But the more long-term kind of investors, I think they should go in contact with Invest in Norway and through Bjørn here. And I think from there is a different kind of routes to go, but depending on what kind of business you represent.
Yeah, so for starting a new data center, you would say first contact Invest in Norway, and for those who perhaps have data loads they want to place in Norway, Bjørn would also be a good contact to introduce to the ecosystem in Norway.
Yeah, exactly.
Absolutely. We have a lot of, in our members, among our members, the founding fathers of our members is basically the colo business in Norway. And they are happy to provide you with any kind of IT load. But I would say that this is a call for action to Norwegian investors, because we are now facing a tremendous and once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to create a new industry in Norway that's basically the sustainable backbone of AI infrastructure serving a greater European and global market. And yeah, I think that could be an industry adventure that we need to work harder on this, and we need to make sure that this is a business and an industry that's going to stay in Norway and benefit the society for many, many years to come.
And maybe also especially important for Norway, who has been very heavily dependent on fossil fuels for a long time. So if we were to be serious about using technology to solve the ESGs and also other sustainability questions and challenges, this is really a good opportunity. It suits the Norwegian industry culture very well as in addition. So I think it could be extremely important for the next couple of years, and extremely, I would say, expensive if we don't do it.
Exactly. Exactly, and it basically touches on all the issues like national security, and sovereignty, whatever. We can build digital embassies for all countries. We can host the valued content for other states and nations.
I have one last question, and of course it has to be about government and politics. So how is the Norwegian data center industry working with the government to shape policies that support the growth of sustainable data centers or a sustainable data center industry?
When we formed this association 2.5 years ago, I think we had two main goals, two main roads that or avenues that we were going to follow. One of them was to address Norway as a favorable nation for establishing your sustainable data centers. The other way was to become the voice of the industry towards the government and make sure that we engage with the government and the authorities to develop favorable policies that maintains the society need and requirements for sustainable infrastructure, sustainable growth. And also, the government has released 2 national data center strategies that really highlighted all of this. So we feel that today we have a very good cooperation with the local and national government in terms of shaping the new policies for the future. So hopefully within the next half year or so, we will have a third revision of this data center strategy that likely would address also the need for more sovereign solutions and more sovereignty and sustainability.
Yes, thank you. You have a comment?
Yeah, I do actually, because I also represent a project called Go for IT, and we collect brilliant minds from the public sector, the private sector, and also from the universities to try to solve some of the biggest tech questions in Norway. And we are happy to work together with Björn to try to solve these questions in a more enlightened kind of way. And I think we can all benefit from that and learning from people who are very skilled in the field. And the reason for that is that, okay, so I don't think it's a good idea to just talk about the data center isolated in a sustainability context. And we have already given out a scientific paper about the climate footprint of how to roll out fibers everywhere, and has extremely good results, and also been interpreted by the EU on their new legislations on sustainability. So I think that if we could have tried to build a narrative around this, who includes cables and local energy consumption as well, in addition to the data centers, maybe there's a story here to tell that in a broader sense that also is easier to accept by the government and the politicians.
Absolutely, and I think that basically what you are explaining now is that it's one of the myths. One of the myths that it's data centers are really the bad guys that using all this precious energy. The fact of the matter is that the data centers constitute for 1/3. 1/3 is in all the ICT networks, the fiber networks, the mobile networks, and so forth. And the bad guys, those are those in households, because it's your mobiles, it's your TV screens, it's your laptop, it's your computers, pulls 40%. That's give or take on the whole power mix. But data centers are so much easier to identify because you have a big site, let's say in Skien, south of Oslo, 240 megawatts. Of course, that's visible. That's extremely visible. With that, I'll say we're sold out.
A closing comment?
Yeah, I think what is important moving forward, I think, is looking at the reuse of the heat from the data center. That is the sort of the big elephant in the room. And I think we have talking about the PUE factor for data centers for the last 30 years. And now I think we should start to talk about energy reuse efficiency, that RE. That should be the topic for the industry moving forward, I think.
I can also add to that also the construction of the data centers and the difference between trenching and micro-trenching and rebuilding a whole road, there's massive CO2 emission to avoid.
Absolutely.
Yes, thank you very much. I think we have to finish now.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank
Give us a hand.
Datacenter Forum, 10 years in Norway today. So we will all stand up, and then we are going to send off a birthday rocket. Now you heard about investments. Norway could be the future epicenter for the whole world of embassies. So all of you, if you all think about one dream for the next 10 years, and then stand up with me, please. Then how you do it is that you step really hard in the ground for a bit, and then we touch our laps, and then we touch our hands, and then we say, shh, and then we say, to the future. So are you ready? And I hope you got some energy back.
Yeah, perfect.
Earpiece.
Heartily.
Okay. Welcome back to Datacenter Changemakers Norway, live from Datacenter Forum Oslo. In our last talk show of today, we'll focus on energy availability and investment, liquid cooling, and what a guest at our Stockholm event in December called a tsunami of letters, otherwise known as ESG. So let's get started on this final hour of the day. My name is Liselotte Lyngsø. I'm a futurist, and this is Datacenter Changemakers Norway. Having heard all day, there's no doubt that the data center sector is booming, but with that comes a big challenge too. A looming bottleneck, access to electricity. Elon Musk, not always a very famous person everywhere, but still he mentioned this week that is going to be the biggest challenge by 2025. And the Nordics seems to have this area for growth, ample of space and plenty of renewable energy, as we also heard before. But can Norway in particular continue to capitalize on this energy advantage and generate new investment opportunities? I have some great guests here who are eager to discuss this topic, but before that, let's turn to DC Bytes, Jovita Januszkiewicz. She will help us set the scene for the discussion. Welcome to you, Jovita.
Thank you. Thank you, Liselotte, and thank you, Datacenter Forum, for having us again. If we were to look into what happened over 2023 across the European data center market, we would actually see that the demand across Europe more or less kept increasing. And the factors such as increasing construction costs, or still some of the delays with the supply equipment, or even the power limitations weren't stopping the incoming demand into the regions. And most of our demand was actually coming from hyperscale companies, from artificial intelligence, but type of companies, whether that was the demand that was coming in or the demand that the data center developers were expecting to attract into the markets in the longer term. So I wanted to show you the map where I've tried to map out the latest Microsoft and Google announcements about the upcoming investments in Europe in 2023. To be clear, these are not all of the announcements. There were a lot of more investments announced in the past, and if we were to gather all of the numbers, we would see that these numbers should be many times higher. But just focusing on the 2023, you can see that there has been quite a few investments into Norway, Finland, UK, despite the power limitations in certain parts of London data center cluster, still seems to be attracting huge investments. In fact, it was said that the $3.2 billion investment that Microsoft is pledging to put into UK to build AI infrastructure is actually going to be the largest investment by Microsoft made into UK to date, while the business has been there for the past 40 years. Likewise, in Germany, for example, another 3.3 billion euros investment to build AI infrastructure and also to digitally upskill and train Germans. There have been quite a few investments coming into Spanish data center market, as you can see in the slide. There's over $2.1 billion announcement was made by Microsoft to also build AI infrastructure in the country, while the Spanish Data Center Industry Association estimated that the investments that will be coming in the next couple of years into the market may even be higher than what we're currently seeing in Paris data center market cluster. And partially for that, I kind of wanted to compare Spain to Norway. Spanish data center market was quite attractive market for a while now, and as you can see in the graph on the right-hand side, the gray color line illustrates how much the market has grown in the last couple of years. And the main reason for that growth was the Spanish geographical position, as well as its great connectivity with United States, Canada, Latin America, Africa. And now, as part of the European sustainability initiatives, Spain is building more and more solar panels and trying to have more renewable energy in the country, and that's something that, again, is attracting more data center investments into the country. Which is something very similar to what we're seeing in Norway, as in the previous panel discussion, Bjorn just mentioned that Norway has an abundant supply of renewable energy, and that's been some of the main factors that has been attracting such a huge demand in the past several years. And only looking into 2022 and 2023 figures, you would see that the capacity that went live in Norway over a year is 42% higher than it was the year before. And at the moment, it seems that Norwegian data center market will continue to grow significantly, and there's a lot more investments to be done into the country in the upcoming years, even more than what's currently shown on the slide on the left. That's all for me. Thank you.
Thanks, Jovita Januszkiewicz. And very warm welcome to my guests here at the table. I have you, Benedicte Fasma Waller from Invest in Norway. Waller, is that rightly called? Halvor Lie from Telenor. Startnet, sorry. Halvor, it's late in the afternoon. From Startnet, Jannike Hilland from Telenor, and Atle Hager from Statkraft. And Benedicte, as a special advisor for Invest in Norway, you must have listed all these competitive advantages several times. So how high on the list is this energy advantage? Is it the first thing that is being said, or?
It's definitely our unique selling point, but we see that it has gotten a lot more attention the past few years. I mean, 10 years ago, we said that when ESG really becomes top of mind, then Norway will have a big advantage. But it's taken quite a while before the rest of the world kind of caught on. And for many years, as Björn said, the fiber wasn't really good enough. We had quite a few like red flags in Norway that we needed to work on in order to be able to capitalize on the green energy. But it's still our USP and something that we need to.
It's probably going to grow a lot the next years, even more in attention.
In attention, yes, and we know that the data centers in Norway have gotten quite a lot of capacity from our TSO Statnett here, so we know that there is room for growth in the industry as well.
And Statkraft Atlas, now the largest renewable energy producer in Europe, producing all that renewable energy is of course really great. Getting it out to the customers is another thing, I guess.
Yes, of course it is. And one constraint we see for further development of the data center industry in Norway is to get grid access. And we come from a situation a few years ago where we haven't had that much applicants from the power intensive industry for decades. But now we and Statnett has seen a flood of new applicants. So now you actually had to change your assessment of that queue. And that's maybe the major hurdle for further development of where we are now, which has been a great story so far. And we are eager to help the industry even further.
And Halvor, we are very grateful to actually have somebody involved in the energy grid here at the table with us. Statnett has changed the grid connection process dramatically over the last few years. What has changed and how is it going to change down the line as well?
Well, we come from a situation where the grid had quite good capacity. Few inquiries to our table, and in 2017, 2018 there was a steep rise in the inquiries, and we started reserving capacity in the transmission grid, and other grid owners as well reserved capacity in their grid. And as that happened, we saw that we did a lot of learning in that period, the last 4 or 5 years. We reserved over the evaluation that they needed capacity, how many megawatts, and when do they plan to use it. So we saw that, well, maybe we are not reserving capacity to the best projects. And then we started to talk to the other grid owners. We have to do some changes so that we actually reserve capacity to those project that has the highest probability to actually be realized, to get energized. And that's all over the different sectors, industries, companies. So we've done a lot of learning, and we started in 2022 with what we call a higher degree of requirements to get reserved capacity, or if it's full in the grid that we have today and the grid that we are planning and building, you get in a capacity queue, as Atle said here. So we have learned a lot, and we have developed together with other grid companies and Fornybar Norge, the interest organization for among both grid companies and producers, what we call a best practice for this grid development process, which has really helped making sure that we evaluate the applicants, the orderings in the same level.
Yannick, does that secure your sense? I mean, without having a very great connection, basically you can't do what you do in your business. So you're heavily relying on this infrastructure.
Yeah, can I just say that data center is a critical part of a digitized society. It's core. It's a core. Yeah, and based on that from Telenor, what we have done is that we have joined a JV with partners to contribute to those data centers. So we have established Skyga together with Hafslund, which is perfect on energy, and together with High Tech Vision, which is good on commercializing new businesses. And we are establishing data centers in this region, focusing on security, sustainability, and national ownership.
And are you afraid of whether of your ability to secure enough power?
Yes. We are part of the twin transition, which is great. It's fantastic, and to me that's hugely motivating. The digital infrastructure is a prerequisite to get into a low carbon society. The Norwegian energy system, I must say, despite all the challenges, it's a fantastic system. It's the world's best energy system. Renewable power, a grid of high quality. But there are issues, even though we are part of the solutions, there are issues when it comes to energy efficiency and when it comes to energy. And I can comment on that. First, on energy efficiency. Our business, we need to focus on energy efficiency. And by co-location, just what we do, putting our processing needs, our storage needs into data centers, we save energy. We save energy also by using energy efficient equipment. And what we do in Skygard, we use the excess heat into the district heating system of Celsio. So, you know, we have to always start with ourselves. Yeah. But then on the energy side, our energy system it's a competitive advantage in Norway, no doubt, and it is today, as you say. We have talked about the grid. That is challenging, and we know about it. It's and I know you're working on this every day. It's good. It's good that you have all the inquiries, because it shows that we want to go into a low carbon society. So it's good. And I know you're working hard on this, so that's excellent. On the production side, you're also working hard. I just want to say, again, what can we do? Because we need more power, no doubt. We need more renewable energy. What we do, and that's more in Telenor, we try to contribute to new production by making so-called power purchase agreements, where we actually, and we say we want it with additionality. That means we want to initiate new production of renewable energy. So there is challenge. We need grid. We need a new production. But it's important that we also, as an industry, contribute to that.
I would like to show you a little clip from Stockholm, where we had Jonathan Evans, and we discussed this land connectivity and energy. And he is the director of a Total Data Center Solution, and he responded to our description of this topic. Let's have a look, and then you can respond to that.
The title you have here, great connectivity to the rest of the world, correct, and room for growth to spare, coupled with ample space and plenty of renewable power, incorrect. I'm sorry guys, the Nordics is running out of power and running out of places to put new data centers. I think Dublin will be a great example of where they've run out of power, and the legislation there won't allow any more data centers to be built, and they're actually having to stop and build in other countries. Now maybe they'll come to the Nordics, but the Nordics has to have the availability to do that, and I think they're going to struggle.
So he was being very direct. I was okay, and he was talking about the Nordics as a whole. Does that resonate with you at all?
No. To be frank. And here using external report from the TSO Statnett.
Also when we look at the Nordic as a whole?
Definitely when you look at Nordics, because it's one market, it's one large market. And looking at this external report from the regulator, from the TSOs, both in Norway, Sweden, Denmark and Finland, we have an oversupply today. We expect increased demand from data centers, hydrogen, ammonia, battery factories, and other industries, but new production will come in, onshore wind power in Finland, Sweden and Denmark, nuclear power in Finland. Sweden has restarted their nuclear program. Huge offshore wind.
Okay, we didn't talk about nuclear. That's interesting. We'll bring that up in Helsinki, I think.
Yeah, but even with a huge expected demand increase from data centers, in all those reports, we still have an oversupply long term.
Great. That's good news. Are you agreeing?
Well, what we see in our analysis is that, well, both, for instance, last year we had compared to the last 30 years, it was a record third time high energy consumption last year. So we had a very high consumption, 135 terawatt hours last year. And we have reserved capacity in total for 8,763 megawatts in capacity. That is ongoing projects that we are managing and following through all the way to energization and grid connection, together with all those other grid companies and Norway. And what we see then, if all these projects are being realized, the energy balance in Norway will be poorer than it is today, obviously. So this is the aspect that we have to take into consideration. So we need more production, both in Norway to ensure the regional power balance between the different areas, and also in Norway as a whole.
Benedicte, can you elaborate on the investment potential of this?
Yes, I mean, I agree completely that long term we need to match production and consumption. But what we see right now is that the data centers in Norway have actually reserved quite a lot of capacity. So 1,200 megawatts was recently reserved through Halvor and his team. And if you saw Jovita's statistics, you saw that we don't have 1,200 megawatts there yet. So there is room to grow for the existing industry, quite a lot of room to grow. And I hope they grow in a good way. But we also see that clients come in to us now and they want 200 megawatts tomorrow. That is very difficult right now. It is very difficult. But we see in the long term, there are definitely possibilities there as well. So short term, the easiest way to get something in Norway now quite quickly is to go to the colos and to the existing operators, because they have quite a lot of capacity. Long term, there are more things that will open up, also because some of the 8,000 megawatts that have been reserved for data centers and other industries, some of those will fall away. And if you're behind them in the queue, then when they fall out, then you can step up. So long term, that will happen. Short term, the existing industry has room to grow, but it's a bit difficult for newcomers who come in with a very short time span.
Moving to something else, good news, because a few weeks ago, Google announced that they will build a huge hyperscale in Skien in Norway. What is your role in that?
Well, it's been a journey. This is, of course, Google's project, but it was facilitated by Statkraft, and it goes back to 2015 when we started a facilitating program in Statkraft.
So 9 years ago.
Yes, and we were looking for suitable sites throughout Norway. Surprise, surprise, we found one in the county of Telemark, which is very hilly, and finding sort of flat place there was quite an experience. Well, not flat, it's Norwegian flat, as we call it, but flat enough.
Yeah.
And then we developed it with the proper zoning and started the application process for power, etc. And we draw Google's attention in 2016. And after 2017, and after 2 years of negotiations, discussions, quite thorough due diligence processes, they acquired the plot in 2019, which is 5 years from now. So still it was a lot of work to do, and what we experienced then, we thought that our job as a facilitator were over, but at the same time as they bought the plot, we also entered into agreement with them, so we were helping them as a consultant. So we have a small team working full-time for Google, being paid by Google, to help them to refine the zoning, etc., etc. So it's been a steep learning curve for us, and of course we are very proud of being facilitating for the largest data center in the Nordics.
I have to ask, since this morning we talked about there were too many black boxes data centers. Are you going to make it hilly and integrate it with the nature?
Well, as we know the communications from Google, you have to ask them.
Okay, okay. So how is this Nordic, how can data centers, Yannick, contribute to this power grid, not just as consumers, but also as contributors? How can you look at yourself having all these hats on?
Yeah, no, as I mentioned, we should always start with ourselves, and we have a fantastic start with the energy system we have, but working on energy efficiency ourselves, also looking into the excess heat solution, I think it's very important to make a circular economy of this, and also looking into the energy efficiency as such. And you're talking about AI. If you've seen, probably we have entered into a partnership with NVIDIA on AI. And AI, as you have discussed today, is also part of the future. But again, I think it's important that we look into how the energy usage for our AI. AI is very powerful. It's a useful tool, but also looking into which type of AI models do we use to certain applications is also a way to be efficient, energy efficient. We don't always have to use OpenAI. Sometimes we can use more traditional AI solutions.
I can't help thinking AI has come back on everybody. Are you really able to plan anything for the next 10 years? You're putting your hands up. Do you have any final comments?
I wanted to say that in addition to heat reuse, which is extremely important, I think we need to work a little bit more, and we've already started talking a lot about flexibility, because data centers can be very flexible consumers in the grid, both frequency balancing in the short term, but also more like long term. And when we're talking about large AI loads, they could also maybe be increasingly flexible. So it's very important that we have a good cooperation and that we do good pilots to be able to maximize the benefit of the data center sector working with the grid.
I totally agree. It's a very important point.
So good dialogue, good partnership, staying with the clients, holding their hands. Any other?
And I think also we need AI to analyze the power system in a fashionable and modernized way, so that we can utilize the grid much more optimized in the future. Dynamic line rating, for instance, how are the predictability throughout the day, throughout the different seasons? How can we actually utilize the existing grid without building new grid? So we are doing massive investments in digitization to how to operate existing grid more efficiently.
Smarter,
But we need our customers and the customers in the grid, connected to the grid, to be a part of
share
that.
data.
But it's quite challenging because the market has to be in balance, as you know, both in the physical market and the financial market. So there's quite challenging today, and we have the most advanced power system in the world with all our connectors, automizations. So this is highly utilized, and we are going to improve that in the future as well.
Thank you so much. That was really inspiring, and I wish you the best of luck collaborating around having enough energy, being an attractive place for the whole world. Let's give them a big hand of applause. Our next section here is around cool IT, liquid cooling. And I would like Thomas to sit on my left, and you, Svein, sit on my right. Because now we're going to be very practical around the subject of sustainability. We will focus on how it intersects with what we talked about this morning, AI. For that, I have you, Svein Atle Hageseth from Green Mountain, and you, but you are not alone, because you are there, Thomas Elkraft from Hewlett Packard Enterprise Norway. I'm not going to use this script anymore. I think we'll start with you.
Sure.
Maybe just for the people who don't know, can you just explain very short Green Mountain and your company?
Sure. So Green Mountain is a company that was started back in 2009, has been operational with 100% uptime since we started with our first facility in Stavanger. We have now 4 facilities in Norway. We also have a facility in the UK, right outside of London, and are currently building the first as close to carbon neutral data center as possible in Germany.
And we talked a lot about AI this morning. Did we cover everything, or how do you think it's going to impact us?
Yeah, I think it's going to impact the whole industry, and you see that when you're walking around the halls here today. It's a lot of work for everyone. You're going to see growth in absolutely every territory in Europe, and of course, especially in Norway. I think we see that based on our experience, 1 out of 10 requests for AI capacity is coming to the Nordics at the moment, and we see that where capacity, even if you look like 2 years ago to Norway, a big case in Norway was like 2, 3, 4 megawatts. Now we are turning down smaller cases that are 10, 20 megawatts and looking at more campus type of views, like the one that Google is building in Skien was just mentioned. We see multiple opportunities of that coming to Norway at the moment.
And Thomas, your clients, is that the same? Can you follow their AI explosion?
Oh yeah. Very much so. So I would say especially the last 18 months, we've seen a dramatic increase in the demand for AI and HPC. Those kind of go together. So high performance computing and AI, it's really exploded. But I have to say it's for now more driven by international customers than Norwegian and Nordic customers.
Yeah, I saw a statistic saying that I think in Europe we spend 1/5 of what they're spending on AI in the States and half of what they're spending in China. So is Norway following, or are we lagging behind already?
No, I think Norway has a fantastic opportunity to be the AI hub for Europe. So going back to Jonathan saying that the Nordics are going to be challenged, I think the Nordic market is going to thrive in regards to the opportunity to do so, because there is very few places where you can get to the capacity that you, if you do things right in Norway, are able to get in Norway. So we mentioned, or the former panel just mentioned all the different drivers to be able to do that. We need to build more capacity. We need to build more power. We need to use the power that we have more efficiently today. I met with the energy minister a couple of weeks ago, and he said that I think it's 7,400 megawatts of assigned power in different contracts or different projects that hasn't been realized. If we're able to release those, I think we have the opportunity to grow as much as we want to. And then, like I said, like Benedicte mentioned as well, the ability to, for instance, take power on condition and not use so many belts and buckles when we categorize how much power we can actually use. I think there's a big opportunity there. So yeah.
So Thomas, when HPE we're looking for this new data center, why Norway?
Well, Svein Atle has already mentioned a few other reasons. So obviously we wanted, but first let me say that this is not just our choice, right? This is a combination of what our customers want, and that's what's driving this. So we are clearly a part, and we like to think that we also give some advice that our customers listens to, but ultimately it's the customer's decision. So what drove the decision? Obviously it's a lot about sustainability, but it's also a lot about geopolitical stability. So I would say it's the combination between geopolitical stability, sustainable energy, and also relatively cheap or competitively priced energy, and also being able to purchase that energy from a predictability terms, both in terms of price and in terms of longevity.
Yeah, and I guess it's nice to work together with people who have a long-term strategy, and you can plug into that.
Absolutely. No, like I said, the partnership with HP has been a fantastic story. Of course, I wish that he said that Green Mountain was one of the main reasons.
I'm going to ask you as well, Thomas, why did you pick Green Mountain?
Oh, yeah.
One wants to hear about himself.
Great question. Yeah, he wants to.
I know all them.
No, but we've known each other for a long time. So I think the first time HP and Green Mountain started having a conversation was back in, I think it was 2018 or 2019. Before everybody knew what the colo industry is all about. So in that sense, we've had a long time to get to know each other. And then that has intensified very much in relation to the growth of HPC and AI over the last couple of years. So Svein Atle and the Green Mountain team is, I would say, super professional. We're not married to Green Mountain as a company, but I have to say right now we are doing most of our work together with Green Mountain when we're talking about colo and data center related business. So Green Mountain is extremely professional, so it's a joy for us to partner up and work together with Svein Atle and his team.
And the technical requirements must have changed during those years. And how did you agree on?
Yeah, no, I think it's changed a lot over the years, and although we've discussed a long time, we've had multiple different opportunities. I think the things that are happening now with Norway becoming kind of a hotspot for development, that kind of plays into that. So, but like I said, it's been a pleasure to work with HPE on finding the right sets. And I think what triggered it, like Thomas touched upon as well, is Norway to be able to deliver international workloads. Because if it was only for workloads in Norway, we would not be the partner for them.
But what about latency?
Not a problem.
Not a problem at all.
No, not a problem. So I think you know more about this than I do, Svein Atle, but I think you're able to cover basically all of Europe within 50 milliseconds, even less than that. And that will effectively support most workloads. It would have to be very highly specialized for to demand any less latency than that.
Yeah, and I think it's the positive. I remember the first meeting I had with a hyperscaler when I joined Green Mountain 8 years ago, and they were evaluating Sweden or Norway, and they decided on Sweden because connectivity was better to Sweden. So what was a kind of an Achilles heel at that time is now becoming one of the biggest strengths of Norway, because we have a very modern fiber network going into Norway with multiple different routes, creating diversity.
Cool.
So I don't see that as a challenge. We still need to invest more in fiber, but it's if we go back to 2018, Green Mountain had 4% of the revenue with international clients. Now 96% of our revenue is with international clients. So it's been a fundamental shift in regards to how can you deliver international workloads from Norway to all of Europe.
Wow. So you're living up the dream that they talked about before. Let's talk about cooling as well, liquid cooling. Can you tell me a little bit about that project? What were the challenges?
Yeah, maybe I can start. You know more about this than I do, but HPE has invested significantly over, well, I can say the past 10 years to develop cutting-edge, cooling-edge technologies. And I think Green Mountain has really been in the forefront of also really supporting this and creating a good home for this type of technology, which we've not seen everywhere, in fact. So, yeah.
No, I think this was one of the learnings that we did throughout the period as well, in discussing with both HPE and other clients, is that when we build data centers, we need to ensure that we build data centers that can cater to both air-cooled technology, but also being future-proof ready, like we now are seeing with liquid cooling type of solutions, right? So yes, it might cost a little bit more to build in the beginning, but it's kind of the 1-10-100 thing. If you're not building for water-cooled type of technologies now, you're going to spend 10 times more money having to retrofit your facility in 5 years' time. So like I said, we enter into contracts now with clients on 10, 15-year terms, and we know that the clients are going to do retrofits or technology changes maybe 2, 3, 4 times during that period. So if you're not building your facility to be ready for that now, you're going to struggle like crazy down the road.
Yeah, because you do generate a lot of heat. Can that be a resource somehow, or is it a waste?
No, it's not a waste. And this is also one of the reasons why we and our customers are choosing Green Mountain, because they contribute to really good solutions on how to reuse that surplus heat. So you can maybe share a little bit more about what you're actually doing on this one.
Yeah, I think we've talked a lot about a couple of projects that we have tried to get across the goal line. But of course, all the facilities that we're building today are being built so that they're ready to be able to use the heat. Of course, all the facilities need to have takers of that heat, and that is always the challenge when you're doing heat reuse, right? So when we're planning new facilities now, and that's why we speak to a lot of the regulators, the municipality, the councils as well, it's not just what we are able to do, but it's how can we together find alternative solutions to be able to use that heat. At the facility that we're now in Hamar, it's 500 gigawatt hours of heat that we're generating. And we need to find takers of that energy. And this is the good thing about liquid-cooled solutions versus air-cooled solution as well, is that the temperature increases. So there's more use of that potential heat for takers. But it's a massive job, but it's not a massive job just for the data centers. And it's not just a job for data centers in general. It's a job also for all other industry in Norway. So a lot of different facilities are producing a lot of different heat, or a lot of heat. So it's not just to put a requirement on a data center thinking that you need to evaluate how you're doing that. You need to do that to all industry, and especially when municipalities or counties are planning new areas or retrofitting industrial areas.
I think this is a very important point because, as we mentioned in the start of the conversation, so far we're seeing a lot of international customers bringing their HPC and AI environments to Norway. And we're not seeing that many Norwegian logos doing so, neither commercial nor public sector entities. And I think it's time to basically speed up that, because this is a joint obligation. And we want to see more Norwegian entities doing the same.
So it's a system of interconnectivity, and if you don't work together, basically you can do all the...
Yeah, we can prep everything that we would like to. And we're investing tenfolds of millions on making sure that our facilities are ready to dispose of the heat to potential takers. But we still need the municipality. So just take an example. We're building the 150 megawatt facility at Hamar. We could feed all of Hamar, the city, but then, of course, we need the municipality or the regulators to ensure that we have takers of that energy. So I'm not saying...
Can we please send this video clip directly to the mayor of Hamar?
Hamar is doing an excellent job. I must say that. It's a fantastic municipality. They've done a lot of really, really good things. But this is not just a Hamar question. It's about a lot of different municipalities where you're planning in the industry. You need to think bigger. We see it time and time again, is that when we are looking at facilities and we ask the municipality why, so are you mandating the builders right next door to use the heat as a resource? And there's very little drive. Like Thomas said, I think we've taken this a little bit for granted because energy has been cheap in Norway.
Yeah.
And we need to start finding opportunities to do this. We have found a couple. We're doing that as well. We're very close to go live now on the Rjukan facility, where we're connecting the data center to Hima Seafood, the world's largest onshore trout fish farm.
Great.
And then, of course, there we also get cold water back. But that's one of the alternatives. We need.
So next year, when I see you again, this challenge has been fixed. Thank you very much for sitting here.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Because we need to have some time to move on to ESG, which is exactly what we spoke about here in practice. How do we make a viable planetary future? We will talk about ESG, regulatory compliance. Welcome to the table. And I have Karen here, Hilsen from Telenor Infrastructure. I have you again, Marley Holle from Skogen, IKT Norway. And I have you, Nelly Flatland from Matea, who's looking after the kids.
It's her kids.
Yeah, but where are the kids?
They're in.
Oh. Are they okay? Somebody is taking care of them, we hope.
If you hear them scream, please go look after them.
No, they can come and sit here. Yeah. With new policy legislation and regulation demanding a more sustainable infrastructure, data center operators must face the daunting task of complying with sustainability reporting requirements. Amid this ever-growing importance of environmental, social, and corporate governance, ESG standards, and the adoption of new regulations, small data center operators in particular need to pay full attention to compliance. And as we heard this morning, it's not just about compliance, it's also about showing the way forward if Norway want to maintain this attractive position in the world. To help us set the scene for our next discussion, I had a talk with Data Center energy efficiency consultant John Booth, and I asked him to describe these 3 new acts or directives which the EU has implemented that all data center operators need to be aware of. So John Booth, take it away.
So there are 3 main pieces of legislation. The first is the Taxonomy Climate Delegated Act. This is primarily focused on the investors and provides assurance to them that the data centers they're investing in will meet the requirements of the EU moving forward. The second piece is the Corporate Sustainability Reporting Directive, and that requires qualifying organisations to publish their Scope 1, Scope 2 and Scope 3, and any third-party Scope 1, Scope 2 and Scope 3 applies directly to them. So if you're an organisation that uses co-location or cloud services, you should be asking them for their information, which you can then incorporate within your reporting regime. The final piece is the Energy Efficiency Directive, which is focused directly on data centres. And that requires 4 pieces of information to be sent through to the Commission. But there's a whole load of administration stuff, which actually looks remarkably similar to the EU Code of Conduct reporting regime. But the 4 pieces of information are total energy consumption, the amount of that energy that's derived from renewable energy resources, such as a power purchase agreement. Then there is the water usage, and then finally waste heat reuse.
So John, how can data center managers address these requirements as they come into effect?
They need to have people within their organisation that really understands this legislation and to develop basically a roadmap and a strategy to actually start delivering.
So do you have anything to add to John's comments here?
First of all, I think you summed it up really well. And we need to deal with this, and we need to deal with it now. Of that list that he made, the number 2 is maybe my favorite, the CSRD, because it's actually quite practical, and it helps corporations deal with this, because we have been struggling. Like, we need standards, we need similar ways of reporting. So I think this is a big step in the right direction, even though it's daunting and it's difficult and it's a lot of work. And we have a Norwegian expression that goes something along the lines that du kan ikke se skogen for bare trær. You can't see the woods for all the trees. And I think that some of us working with sustainability might feel a bit that way, that you're losing the main target in what you're trying to do, like the overall sustainability goals, because you have so much reporting to do and to get into and to understand. But I think it's a really big step in the right direction.
And you've been running a lot of businesses in your career, and you know how critical sustainability is. But how do you help people navigate this complexity of compliance?
Yeah, I think, Marty, I was listening to you earlier, and I think it was brilliant what you said about it. It's a lot to do with competencies, and also I see with also people having the confidence. And I don't know about you guys, but when you walk into a room and said, okay, we're going to talk about all reporting requirements, you can just feel the energy being sucked, and everybody goes white and gets freaked out. And we actually run this sprint project in Telenor where I said, okay, just for a few weeks, bear with me, I don't care about reporting. Everybody's like, how can you say that sort of thing? And I said, no, but I want us now to start thinking, okay, forget it's a compliance. How can this add value to our business? How can it really, back to your point on the important things? And they said, yeah, but we can't get it prioritized. So I sort of, amongst all this digging, I found this fantastic tool that the EU have got called the Double Materiality Assessment. And the trouble is it was just then seen as a pure reporting requirement. But when we started to educate leaders on how to use it, how to take initiatives, I think some of the examples you got, how do you think ESG impact and business impact? And then you start getting the organization, they almost sort of start lighting up. I even get emails from people saying, hey, I've got this great idea that I see fits into ESG and it can save us costs. And I remember I sort of did this presentation to a bunch of finance people in our organization who are sort of trying to drive the reporting. And then I said, any questions? And one said, so you say ESG can also reduce costs? Mm-hmm. And I said, yeah, but we need to start reporting on it. And now we've managed to get a bit more momentum and focus on the reporting because they see the value in it.
So moving from financial controller to financial explorers, financial ESG explorers.
And I feel
That's
sometimes
cool.
it's sort of, as somebody said to me now, sort of we're at the phase, it's a bit like if you think of a frozen lasagna.
Yeah.
And you put a frozen lasagna in the microwave, and it's always the top layer and the bottom layer that defrost first. And that's, I feel, a bit working in our organization. You've got like the top saying, we have to do the reporting, we have to do this is important. And the bottom layers sort of saying, yeah, come on, we really need, and the middle management saying, help, like, we're stuck and we're frozen, but then it's sort of giving the tools. And I think whether it's sort of sustainability leaders or externals or whatever, sort of, we need to drive this together forward.
Is that something you recognize, Marley, with your members?
I think it was brilliantly summed up, and I also think that on
frozen
top
lasagna.
Yes, who doesn't love lasagna? I mean, no, but I think also there are some real gold in this story, because on top of this, the innovation part comes out. So when we are being trained to do this in a proper way, and we can see the result both financially and on the sustainability output and reports, we will also find a way to make new innovations on top of it. And in a country like Norway, that's extremely important, because we have a long track record of buying and consuming technology and not being so efficient in developing new tools and workplaces, and also create value out of this. So I think that we have very many skilled people who can do this. We can at least have a lot more of them, but people who are diving into this situation and to the reporting and let's face it, it's just, if we make this happen, the world is changing, right, in a very, very good and a fast way. So if we can do that, I think we have a strong innovation power in it, and I also think that it can lead to value creation in another level that we haven't seen before.
I completely agree. If we can't measure it, it's not going to happen.
No.
We need to have measurables. Nelly, you just had a whole day on sustainability. What were your main takeaways?
Yes, so Atea is the biggest IT company in the Nordics, the third biggest in Europe, and we have been focusing on sustainability for I think our first climate GHG protocol is from 2008. So we have been focusing on this for a while, but what we see is just what you're talking about, how and we also see it with our customers now, that so one thing is being compliant on the ESG side, but a whole nother level rises when you actually see the added value on focusing on this, how our employees are engaged, how it's positioning us in the market, how our customers are engaging with us, how it's also helping us transform our own business, because that's one thing we're talking way too little about when we're talking about ESG. We're talking about all the reporting issues, but how are we actually transforming our own businesses to become more sustainable? Because we have been in this linear using, buying, and then getting rid of all the equipment, including data center assets. So how do we move to a more circular consummation? And we see that changing when focusing on this, and we have just the same. And that was my main takeaway from our conference on sustainability this week, that companies want to do more, but they're struggling with how. And they're struggling on where to start. So the materiality assessment, even though the wordings might sound like boring, it makes so much sense to also let your employees know that we're working on what matters most. Where we can actually make an impact is where we are putting in all our effort. It makes so much sense working that way, but we see customers struggling with it. Where to start, how to start. We are an IT company, but our customers come to us and ask us, how do we set our sustainability strategy? We're like, it's not really within our scope, but they see that we work on it and the benefits that we get from working on it, and they want the same, but they don't know where to start. So
and we see, I think it's around 54% of the young generation entering the labor market, they are firing companies if they are not living up to the ethical compass of ESG. So it is a very important way of recruiting talent. So Karen, beside from the frozen lasagna, how do we how do we make some shortcuts here? Can we use AI to do some ESG smarter or sharing knowledge, or everybody's standing with this? And how do we get ESG to reach the same level of importance as the finance?
Yeah, and I think it's there's sort of so many elements here, and I think what you said, it's a transformation. This is a transformation. And it means we have to start thinking differently as leaders. And just a very, maybe a stupid example, but we sort of, okay, we need to do more on this. Oh, we don't have the resources. So well, should we just ask people if they want to work with this? And we did it. People were putting up, yeah, can we do it? And everything. And as you say, there is this, if I can say, younger generation, sort of them, like, oh yeah, well, let's do this. This is cool. And I think, we need to sort of change our mindset. I think leaders need to take more ownership. This isn't just a small sustainability team somewhere down the organization. The true way for any company to succeed with this is if the management teams really own it, if it's integrated into the strategy, and if it's part of everything we do.
Mali.
I think the younger generation is an extremely massive pull, and we have numbers on this because, first of all, we have CEOs who are reporting to us. They are looking for the greatest talents in the industry to hire, and let's face it, it's to find the right minds in this transformation is extremely important, both on the tech level and the sustainability level. And they talk to the talents they want to hire and are being frequently asked, so if I get this job, how can I contribute to sustainability in society and in the company? What kind of project can I work on? And I think there are many different reasons for that pull coming so clearly. One of them is, of course, that the people who are growing up today, they face a completely different future than we do. And it feels completely meaningless not trying to change it, because the situation we're living is quite dangerous on many levels at the same time. The other part of it is that you are very easily outdated if you can't get on top of this. I mean, can you see, in the future ahead, would you see CEOs in the IT industry who is not equipped on AI, on sustainability? Probably not. It will be valuable skills for CEO and leadership to have. And from our perspective, we have been chasing the idea of building much more people and students and the whole work stock of Norway being skilled in technology, because technology skills is not only skills in technology. In June, there was a report given out by the state of Norway called Kompetansebehovsutvalget, and what they were asked to do was to try to map out what kind of skills do the work stock of Norway need to get Norway through the green shift, covering public, private sector, and also academia. And what came out as the most valuable skill to pull Norway through the Norwegian workforce through the green shift was by far technology. So technology, circular economy, competence on energy, and leadership. Those 4 skills are by far the most valuable to get this done. And I think that the younger generation by far wishes to adopt those things. And we can see that, so we have these 2,713 study places. There are 8,000 people who are applying to these, so there's an obvious bottleneck to do that. We could flood the society with people who have IT skills if we want to. And from everyone who applied to higher education in Norway in 2023, 27,000 people had tech on their whole list of which they wanted to do, what they wanted to do in universities and high school. So so I think that there is a kind of a double pull. It's both on the sustainability level and tech level at the same time.
Any final comments?
I totally agree that we need to anchor this at the top in our corporations, but we also see that there's a bottom-up initiative coming. We have mandatory sustainability training for all our employees. That is quite extensive, but we also have what we call sustainability ambassadors, and that is basically people who raise their hands and say, I want to have an additional role in addition to what I do in this company. And they raise their hands because they want to work with this and they want to learn more and have that extra competence. So we see it coming from both ways, like we see it coming from the board and we see it coming from our own employees. So it's really...
So we've been talking a lot about this ESG regulation. That was John starting out. So we shouldn't see those as a threat at all. We should see them
don't be freaked as a tool. Don't be freaked out.
As an opportunity. We should grab them and use them as an excuse to start doing important stuff.
Yes.
Yeah, just get on top of it.
Yeah.
And then I think in terms of finance and investment, isn't it the best investment ever that these kids have a future, you know, that they have a planet to be. So I don't think it's crazy of them at all to make these very black and white. I had cybersecurity people last week, and they said, but we can earn 10 times more being criminal, but we want to work with the good guys. I mean, we are choosing. So everything is very black and white these days, and I think companies have to get used to that, but it's hard to do the right thing. It's hard work. Thank you very much for joining this very final session.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Unfortunately, we have to wrap up for now. I would like to thank all you guests for the insight. See you at Datacenter Forum Helsinki next month. For everybody here joining us in the room, in the expo area, there are nice drinks to be shared. And we hope that you will go in there and say cheers to each other. Take care, and thank you for you guys joining online.